Anyone who's gone on a diet knows the most difficult thing about dieting is the appetite. In other words, when you have to restrict foods, you tend to get hungry, and that makes dieting compliance that much harder. But if you understand some of the factors that make you hungry, there's things you could do about it that will make, I'm not going to say it's going to make dieting pleasant or easy, but it'll make it a lot more effective. So let's take a look at some of the factors related to dieting that make you hungry. Probably one of the first mistakes that people make that make them hungry in regard to diet is not consuming enough protein. A lot of people hear that the only way to lose weight is to restrict calories, which is true. But when they go overboard and they restrict calories across the board, they restrict protein, fat, and carbohydrate. Now, it's okay to restrict carbohydrate. It's okay to restrict fat to a certain extent, as long as it's not essential fat, like omega-3 fatty acids, and to a lesser extent, omega-6 is found in vegetable oils and that type of thing. But reducing protein is problematic for a number of reasons. First of all, one reason is that you need to consume more protein than normal to maintain lean mass when you're dieting. If you're dieting and your protein is too low, your body will start to metabolize your own protein from muscle. You're going to lose muscle, and your nesting metabolic rate has to do with birds. Resting metabolic rate will drop, and when that happens, it makes the dieting recidivism, which means gaining the weight right back, highly probable. Now, the reason why that's one reason why you want to include extra protein when you're dieting. But secondary reason is that protein has a lot of hunger-reducing properties. It stimulates various hormones. Now, why would let give you a couple of ways that protein helps you diet. It increases satiety. Satiety basically means appetite, things related to appetite, and it increases satiety to a much greater extent compared to carbohydrate or fat, and it can facilitate a reduction in energy consumption under all types of calorie conditions. Again, increasing your protein also increases thermogenesis. Thermogenesis is the conversion of calories into heat rather than fat. In other words, the calories are just basically burn up. They call it in chemistry a futile energy cycle because the calories just don't go anywhere. They're burned up. That's thermogenesis. Higher protein diets are associated with increased thermogenesis, which also influences satiety and augments energy expenditure in the longer term. In the longer term, increased thermogenesis contributes to the relatively low energy efficiency of protein. And as I said earlier, the third reason is the maintenance of fat-free muscle mass, which is very important, very important when you're dieting. And one study, 14 men with excess weight or overweight consumed 25% of their calories from protein for 12 weeks, and they experienced a 50% reduction in their desire for late-night snacking compared with a group that consumed less protein. It was a 2011 study. And additionally, those with a higher protein intake reported greater fullness throughout the day with fewer obsessive thoughts about food. Again, typical protein foods: meat, poultry, fish, and eggs. Personally, of course, there's protein in other foods like legumes, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. But, excuse me, the protein in animal proteins like meat, poultry, fish, and eggs are much higher in essential amino acids, so they're higher quality, so you don't have to eat as much of them, although stuff like fish and poultry doesn't have many calories anyway. Another reason why you tend to be hungry, is not getting enough sleep. I've talked about this. I just did a massive special issue of my Applied Metabolics newsletter. It's the January 2022 issue, and the entire issue is devoted to sleep. Everything you want to know about sleep, how sleep affects muscle building, how it affects general health, brain health, everything, all the latest research about sleep and practical ways to get around sleep problems. And of course, sleep is required for the proper function of your brain and immune system. And if you don't get enough sleep, you're prone to many different diseases, including heart disease and cancer. But when you don't get enough sleep in relation to appetite, there's a hormone or a protein called ghrelin. Ghrelin is produced in the gut and elsewhere. Ghrelin, by the way, interacts with growth hormone receptors, can actually stimulate growth hormone. Now, normally you'd say, well, that means it's fat burning, right? Well, no. Ghrelin also is the most potent appetite-stimulating hormone in the body. When you eat a meal, ghrelin drops like a rock, but in between meals, ghrelin, the level of ghrelin gradually increases, and as it increases, you get hungrier and hungrier until you desire to eat. This is nature's way of ensuring that you eat enough so you don't starve yourself to death. Unfortunately, when you don't get enough sleep, ghrelin levels get out of control. They tend to get too high, and even worse, the opposing hormone to ghrelin is called leptin. Leptin is what they call a adipokine, meaning it's a kind of a protein released from fat cells that signals the brain that the fat cells are replete with fat content, and in doing so, it turns off the appetite. So you could say that leptin is the yang to ghrelin's yin. In other words, when your leptin levels are high, you're less hungry, and unfortunately, when you don't get enough sleep, ghrelin levels rise, leptin's level get lower, and you get voraciously hungry, and it's very easy to eat too much when that happens. In one study, 15 people who were sleep deprived for only one night reported being significantly more hungry and chose 14% larger portion sizes compared with a group that slept 8 hours. Getting enough sleep also, as I said, it ensures adequate amounts of leptin. So you have to get at least 7 to 8 hours sleep a night, uninterrupted sleep. Another reason why you're hungry is, and this is very common, eating too many refined carbs. Refined carbs, by definition, are highly processed carbs that lack fiber, vitamins, and minerals. It's just loaded with various types of quick-acting sugar. Examples of refined carbs: white flour, found like in bread and pasta, soda, candy, baked goods. These are junk foods, not likely to be eaten in large quantities by anyone who's into fitness. But, sometimes, you just have an urge to eat this kind of stuff. But, if you do it when you're dieting, for example, if you're following a low-carb diet or a diet where you're on restricted calories or restricted carbohydrate, and you take a junk day, for example, what I call a junk day is where you eat a lot more, let's say, carbohydrate. Unfortunately, if you eat a lot of these refined carbohydrates, your appetite's going to go up so high, it's going to be very hard to go back on the diet the next day. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be harder to diet for a couple of days because of the effect of the refined carbohydrates have on your body. And they do. And refined carbohydrates, unlike natural carbohydrates, which have a natural fiber content, fiber is filling. So when you eat natural carbohydrates that contain fiber, like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, that kind of thing, kind of makes you feel full, so you have less desire to eat. Not so with refined carbohydrates, including high fructose corn syrup. They don't fill you up, so you wind up eating too much. That's the problem. And eating the refined carbs also gives you these big spikes in insulin. Now, insulin, when it's secreted, it pushes the glucose in the blood into the cells, including muscle, but it also lowers your blood glucose at the same time. The blood glucose gets too low from too much insulin. Boom, you're hungry, and you'll tend to overeat. So you want to avoid refined carbohydrates at all times. Maybe the one time you can have them is, let's say you're involved in extended exercise or endurance activity where you're kind of burning out most of your muscle glycogen. Glycogen is basically a stored form of carbohydrate in the human body, found in liver and muscles. Now, if you take in a rapid form of carbohydrate, including refined carbohydrate, within 2 hours after a workout, all of that carbohydrate is going to go into replenishing glycogen. So it's unlikely to either make you hungry or make you fat. That's the one time when you can safely eat refined carbohydrates with no problem. Another thing that can make you hungry is if your diet's lacking in fat. A lot of these diets you see, especially the vegan diets, they tell you, fat is bad, avoid fat, and, fat's associated with heart disease and cancer and this and that. But fat plays a large role in decreasing your appetite. This is partly due to the slow gastrointestinal transit time of fat. The fat takes longer to digest, it stays in your stomach longer. And when you eat fat, certain appetite-suppressing hormones, such as cholecystokinin, are secreted in the gut, and there's one called PYY that actually they interact with the brain to reduce your appetite. That's where you'll find that most high-fat foods tend to lower your appetite quite a bit. So, in other words, conversely, if your diet is too low in fat, like like the vegan diets or the diets where they say don't take in less than 10% fat, it's going to be very hard. I know when I was in bodybuilding competition, I tried the low-fat diets. I couldn't last more than 4 days. I was so freaking hungry, I couldn't take it. And again, it was because of the lack of fat. One study involved 270 adults who were obese, and they found that those who followed a low-fat diet had significant increases in cravings for carbohydrate and preferences for high-sugar foods compared to a group that consumed the low-carb diet. And also, the people in the low-fat diet reported greater feelings of hunger compared to a low-carb diet. So there's a couple of ways to increase your fat. Good fats include, for example, supplementing with medium-chain triglycerides or coconut oil. This type of fat basically is quick-acting, very low tendency to become body fat. Of course, omega-3 fatty acids are very healthy for you, and they also tend to reduce the appetite. You don't want to go crazy on omega-3 fatty acids because some recent studies show that having an excess of omega-3, for some reason, it tends to stimulate a heart condition called atrial fibrillation. So you don't want to go crazy on that. But naturally good natural high-fat foods include avocados, extra virgin olive oil, eggs, whole eggs, not egg whites. Egg whites are completely devoid of fat. They're almost pure protein, and full-fat yogurt. Another problem that makes you hungry is not drinking enough water. There's an old trick to dieting where they tell you if you drink a 12-ounce glass of water before a meal, you will actually reduce your appetite to the extent where you will actually consume less calories during the meal. And also, a lot of people don't know, drinking a full glass of water actually provides a thermogenic effect. It actually increases your metabolism. This is a little shocking factoid. As much as ephedrine does. Ephedrine is a famous fat loss drug that was popular among bodybuilders and everybody. It was very effective for fat loss, but drinking a full glass of water gives you the same rise in metabolism as an ephedrine, 25 milligrams of ephedrine. A lot of people don't know that. The water, obviously, drinking before a meal, it reduces your appetite because it's kind of filling. In fact, there's been studies showing eating, soup does the same thing because of the water content. When you increase water or soup, you're putting stuff in your body that who knows what it does. Maybe it expands, it affects neurons in the gut. I'm not sure why, but it actually reduces appetite immediately. You wind up not eating as much. For example, in one study, 14 people who drank 2 cups of water before a meal ate 600 fewer calories in the meal compared to those who didn't drink any water. 600 fewer calories. So, drink water, and you always want to stay hydrated anyway. It's very bad to become dehydrated, but that's another video or article in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. A major reason why people get hungry is, again, related to the processed carbs. You're not getting enough fiber. Fiber is very filling. This is why vegan bodybuilders have a little bit of a problem ingesting that protein, because the vegetable and fruit foods that they concentrate on are so high in fiber that it fills them up, and because fruits and vegetables are a little bit lower in protein compared to animal foods, they have to eat a lot more of these foods to get enough protein. But the fiber opposes that because it's so filling that you just don't want to eat that much after a while. And also, a lot of people don't know, when you consume a high fiber intake, it influences that release of, again, the appetite reducing hormones in the gut, and also it increases the production, the intestinal microbiota, which is the organisms such as bacteria and fungi and various organisms that reside in the large intestine, or the colon. When you ingest fiber, that's food for the intestinal microbiome, and they actually produce what they call short-chain fatty acids. There's 3 main ones: acetic acid, propionic acid, and butyrates. Now, these things, especially propionic acid, they actually have a very potent appetite-reducing effect, and they also impart the feeling of fullness. So one of the tricks that fiber has in helping you to maintain weight or lose weight is that it causes this production of these short-chain fatty acids. And by the way, the short-chain fatty acids have a lot of health benefits, including prevention of colon cancer, quite a bit of others. There's 2 basic kinds of fiber. One of them is soluble fiber. That's, for example, that's found in fruits and oatmeal, that kind of thing. and then you have insoluble fiber. Typical examples of high fiber foods: oatmeal, flax seeds, sweet potatoes, oranges, Brussels sprouts. These are all sources of soluble fiber. Wheat bran is a good source of insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber it mainly helps prevent constipation, keeps things moving along. So you want to get both types of fiber. You don't want to eat when you're distracted, because when you eat when you're distracted, like if you're not paying attention, let's say you're eating at a restaurant with groups of people, you wind up overeating. I've done this myself. I remember going to a restaurant years ago. I think it was in Vegas, where they had this unbelievable. They brought out this bread. It was a brown bread, a whole grain bread, and it was like heated. It was warm, and it had like a sweet taste. And I remember I took one taste of this, and I was involved in this discussion with people around, and I kept eating this bread like they brought out like 3 trays of it. I kept eating this bread. I don't know, God knows how many calories. By the time the meal came, not only was I not as hungry, but I still ate the food. I grossly overate because I wasn't paying attention to how much bread I was eating. So you want to actually be aware of what you're eating at a meal, because you could wind up overeating, and this in one study, for example, 88 women were instructed to eat either while distracted or just sitting there in silence. The distracted women were less full and had a significant greater desire to eat more throughout the day compared with non-distracted eaters. Another study found that people who distracted themselves with a computer game during lunch were less full than those who did not play the game. Because you basically put you get so focused on the game that you don't eat. You don't eat and wind up eating 48% more food later in the day. So don't eat when distracted. If you exercise too much, and exercise, of course, very important for fat loss. But if you wind up, there's some books like this guy Gary Taubes. He wrote a couple of books that espousing low carbohydrate and ketogenic diet. He likes to write that exercise is a waste of time for losing body fat, because when you exercise, you burn so many calories that you wind up being super hungry after the workout, and you wind up overeating and canceling out all the calories you burn. That's not necessarily true unless you overtrain. If you do extensive, too much exercise, you wind up exercising too much. You wind up burning so many calories that you get voraciously hungry, making it harder to stay in a diet. But a 2014 systematic review of 103 studies still it found no consistent evidence to support increased energy intake after exercise. So in one study, 10 men who engaged in a vigorous 45-minute workout increased their overall metabolic rate by 37% for the day, compared with another day when they did not exercise. So even if they ate more, the increased metabolism kind of burned up the extra calories anyway. Another study found that women who exercised at a high intensity every day for 16 days burned 33% more calories throughout the day than a group who did not exercise, and 15% more calories than moderate exercises. Although several studies have shown exercise to be beneficial for suppressing appetite, there is some evidence that vigorous long-term exercises tend to have greater appetite. So there's some truth to it, but the people that spend 4 hours, 5 hours in the gym and do 30 to 40 sets of body pump, they're going to wind up being much hungrier than people that exercise more judiciously. Let's just say that. Also, what can make you hungry is just drinking too much alcohol. Alcohol, a lot of people don't realize it stimulates your appetite. You see these people that drink beer, they always have those beer barrel. When you drink too much beer, for some reason it increases fat, particularly in the gut, so you get the famous beer belly type of thing. In one study, 12 men who drank 1.4 ounces of alcohol before lunch ended up consuming 300 more calories at the meal than a group that drank only 0.3 ounces of alcohol. Those who drank more alcohol ate 10% more calories throughout the day compared to a group that drank less. Another study found that 26 people who drank 1 ounce of alcohol with a meal consumed 30% more calories compared to a group that avoided alcohol. Alcohol may not only make you hungrier, but it also impairs the part of your brain that controls judgment and self-control, where you could wind up eating more without even realizing it. So, in other words, you're drunk. When you drink your calories, there's a tendency to make you hungrier because, again, the lack of fiber, the calories kind of move right through you. Now, to be honest with you, my breakfast on the days I work out is a smoothie. What they call a smoothie. It consists of isolated whey protein, strawberries, and banana. I take it, it digests quickly. I'm used to it, so I don't really get that hungry. But when I first started doing it, I was like hungry. Like 2 hours later, I felt like I had to eat a meal. I don't get that anyway. It doesn't happen anymore. I think my body's gotten used to it. But if you drink most of your calories, the liquid passes through your stomach much quicker than solid foods do, so you don't get quite the same satiety effect. Now, also another reason why that can make you really hungry is if you're under high stress conditions. Stress is known to increase appetite, and the reason for that is when you're stressed, you tend to secrete more of a hormone called cortisol, which is an adrenal steroid hormone, and it's known to promote hunger and food cravings. In fact, excess cortisol is known to promote fat deposition right in the trunk area of the body and the back of the neck. It actually stimulates localized fat deposits. So if you're overly stressed, again, because of the excess cortisol that's released, you'll tend to eat more. One study of 59 women who were exposed to stress, they consumed more calories throughout the day and ate significantly sweeter foods than women who were not stressed. Another study compared the eating habits of 350 young girls. Those with higher stress levels were more likely to overeat compared to those with lower stress levels. The girls with high stress levels also reported higher intake of low nutrient snacks like chips and cookies. You can manage stress through techniques like exercise itself manages stress, deep breathing, meditation, yoga, that type of stuff. Just anything you do. Certain nutrients I talked about in past videos like theanine, ashwagandha, all these are great for managing stress. And they will lower cortisol, making it easier to diet because you're not as hungry. Certain medications can also make you hungry. These include antipsychotics such as clozapine and olanzapine. Antidepressants are famous for increasing hunger. Mood stabilizers, corticosteroids, anti-seizures drugs. Of course, diabetic medications, insulin itself. If you have to take insulin, diabetics who are new to insulin always gain weight, always gain body fat, and this is again a reason why there's a school of thought that says insulin doesn't make you fat, yet it doesn't explain why most diabetics, when they first get on insulin, they always put on weight and they always gain body fat when they first start using insulin. Insulin secretagogues, drugs similar to insulin, like thiazolidinones, they also increase hunger. They're famous for increasing hunger. Some people think birth control pills increase hunger, but there's no research to back that up. I once did an article about a Japanese study about they found they compared two groups of people. One group of people just wolfed down their food, ate it very fast. The other group ate very slow. They actually took a bite of food and put down their fork. That's how slow they ate. And it turns out the people that ate their food gained weight. The people that ate slowly actually lost body fat. People who eat too fast have much greater appetites, and of course, because of their rapid eating, they tend to overeat. They're more likely to be obese. A study involving 30 women, fast eaters consumed 10% more calories at a meal and reported significantly less fullness compared to slow eaters. Another study compared the effects of eating rate in people with diabetes. Those who ate a meal slowly became full more quickly and reported less hunger 30 minutes after a meal compared to the fast eaters. So you want to. There was a thing called, I think it was called Fletcherism. It was a fad back in the early 20th century, started by a guy named Fletcher, and it involved chewing each piece of food that you put in your mouth 100 times. You chew each piece of food 100 times before swallowing it. I know that sounds crazy, but this actually was a huge, huge thing in the early 20th century. Some presidents even did it. William Howard Taft, who was a president of the United States, they actually did this, what they call Fletcherism, where they would, again, each morsel of food they ate, they chewed 100 times. William Howard Taft was one of the fattest presidents. I'm not sure if he might actually be exceeded by Donald Trump. I'm not sure which guy was fatter. I know that they had to make a special bathtub for William Howard Taft because he was enormously fat. But this chewing the food thing, he actually lost like 40 pounds doing that because he actually ate less food. Later on, he used a low carbohydrate diet, which was very obscure back then in the early 20th century, and that actually caused him to lose about 40 pounds more. So it gives you an idea. Little tricks that make you eat slower. Besides, you don't have to do Fletcherism, but you want to take a couple of breaths between meals. Put your fork down between bites, and just chew your food a little bit longer than normal. It'll be better digested anyway. Certain medical conditions can make you feel hungry. Frequent hunger is a sign of diabetes. Hyperthyroidism, where your body's producing too much thyroid hormone, that's associated with increased hunger. Hypoglycemia, low blood glucose level, that definitely increases your hunger. And if you're depressed, if you're anxious, women with premenstrual syndrome, also, because of hormonal changes, they also tend to be hungrier. So that's about it for some of the things that make you hungry. Keeping in mind, I've tried to give you a couple of antidotes, to dealing with hunger that can easily arise whether you're on a diet or not. And if you employ some of these methods I mentioned, again, I'm not going to say it's going to make dieting a breeze, it's going to make dieting easier, but it'll certainly make dieting compliance a lot more efficient compared to try and just avoid this thing and let the hunger overtake you, because you'll just blow the diet. You'll go on a binge and that'll be the end of the diet. So that's about it. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, ergogenic aids, anti-aging research you can use today, fat loss techniques that really work, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't. I'm going to give you the truth about that based on evidence. I'm not associated with any supplement company, so you can count on me. I will give you the truth. All my life, I've been a seeker of truth, and that's what I try to do. There's so much BS out there on the internet, especially related to nutrition, exercise. My Applied Metabolics newsletter, I look at as an antidote to all the BS. You can be assured when you're reading Applied Metabolics, which is 40 to 50 pages every month, you're getting the 100% truth. I'm not trying to sell you anything other than information, and I will also state that it's one of the best economical buys you can buy related to digital publications. There's other publications related to nutrition and exercise. They charge anywhere from $15 to $30 a month and up. I just recently saw a kind of I don't know if it's a newsletter, it's a kind of a monthly package being sold by a researcher. Her top tier monthly charge, it's $250 a month. Now compare that to the $10 a month I charge for Applied Metabolics. You're getting an incredible bargain. Anyone who's a subscriber will tell you that. The only problem with Applied Metabolics is that I provide so much information in each issue that it proves too overwhelming for some people. They just can't get through it. Now, if that's your problem, what I suggest is there's free programs on the internet that you can bring up the Applied Metabolics on your screen, and you can go, let's say, into a Microsoft, what is it called? The operating system, and it will. There's a free reader. It will actually read the entire article to you, so you don't even have to read it yourself, and that's completely free. So subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on exercise, science, fitness, nutrition, and medical and general health information every day. Also, I have an email portal, my Applied Metabolics website, where current subscribers only are welcome to answer short questions about anything they might have read in the newsletter or anything that comes up. Questions, please keep them short, because if you try and ask me like 30 questions, that's going to require a consult. And also, more recently, people have misunderstood this free offer I give about the questions, and there's one guy who sends me about 10, 15 questions every day. Listen, seriously, for $10 a month, you can buy, seriously, $10 a month, you can ask me 15 questions every day. Like I have nothing better to do than answer your questions. Sorry. I answered like 40 of this guy's questions, and then I had to cut him off. He just abused it. That's abuse. So, I think, and I should also point out, none of the other people that have digital publications will answer any questions. None. They don't. I'm the only person that, to my knowledge, that does that. So again, www.appliedmetabolics.com. You're really missing out if you don't subscribe. And that's about all I could say. It's video's a little bit long, but hey, compared to what it's compared, I was going to watch a podcast today, 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours. Now that's long. 30 minutes like this video, this isn't long. 3 hours, long. Take care. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. Thank you for listening.